everyone, how we doing today? I needed to clean my mat from my Cricut, so I thought I'd show you how, because I get asked quite often, well, what I use. And I use the same thing whether it's a Cricut mat or a Brother Scan and Cut mat. So you can see this is my fabric mat, and I just got done doing a bunch of cutting, so I don't want to put it away, this dirty. So I want to go ahead and clean it. I want to make sure I have my film nearby. And the thing, and I'll say it again in a bit, but while this is damp, don't put the film back on. And while it's damp, and this includes the Brother Scan and Cut mats, if you feel it and it doesn't feel sticky, don't panic, because as it dries or when it dries, it'll be sticky again. I just use baby wipes, non-alcoholic, scent-free baby wipes. Now mine are getting a little old, so they're not quite as juicy, so it might take me more wipes than normal. So, and I'm just going to start going around. I'm not going to scrub too hard. And I kind of go over it and see if I can get that, you see that? Get the big stuff off, the big threads and so forth first. So you can see how I've picked up all those threads. And I'm just going to keep turning it and get the big threads off first, because I don't want to keep dragging them around. And like I said, you probably won't need as many wipes as I do, because like I said, my wipe packet is older, this particular one, and they're damp, but they're not wet. And you can already see, let me give you a little section here. And when you do it, you'll just take your time. You don't need to be in a big rush. Just take your time and get it clean. And I'll clean this little spot here so you can see it compared to the rest of it. So see this area right here? It's nice and clean, and it looked just like this. And I don't know, yeah, there we go. You can see all the junk there. And you can see now, nice and clean. I'm kind of doing circular motions, but if I get a little area, I might scrub a bit back and forth. And I try to get it reasonably clean first, and then go back and try to get it back to as close to new as I can. And again, because along the edges you might get more build up. I try to, when I use my mats, I try to make sure I move in this case, the fabric around to different spots, so I'm not cutting in the same exact spot every time. And at the end of this little cleaning video, I will show you how I give you a quick, maybe I should make it a separate one. No, we'll put it at the end. I'll do a quick little run through of how I move it around the mat and how I match it up to make sure it cuts in the right place. Because with the Cricut, it automatically puts everything to the top left corner. And you don't want to always cut in the top left corner. With the Brother Scan and Cut, you should always be scanning in whatever is on your mat so that you can see where each fabric is if you're doing more than one color, or where the piece of fabric might be before you cut. So let me cut away on the video so you don't have to boringly watch me, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I've cleaned my mat off. It might have taken me, I don't know, 5-10 minutes maybe. I just want to remind you, so when you use your wipe, I kind of fold it a few times. And especially if it's really dirty, if you go to one area and you got all that dirt, switch it to a different, switch it around, because next you won't realize it, but you're just moving more dirt around to another spot. So keep turning it, especially at the point when it's really, really dirty. And then, then turn it inside out, because it's really, still perfectly fine. So you can get 8 turns at one, what do you call these? Wipe. Couldn't think of what it was. And then when you get to the end, just do the same, take another new wipe, and still keep turning it, because I found, even as many times as I tell myself not to do it, I found that I would go down so far thinking everything's fine, and then I would notice, oh, wait a minute, it really isn't, because I'm just moving that fine little dirt that's left around to another spot. So there we go. And I don't know if you can hear it, but it's still sticky, and it's really not, well, this again isn't that wet. I did dig down in my wipe container and got a couple that were a little more wet, and it did clean up faster. So now I'll just quickly show you. So if we want to, say we're cutting, I don't know, a couple squares or whatever from 2 different fabrics. So I'm going to put this one down, and pardon me while I reach for my wheel. It'll probably help if you put the wheel down the correct way, or the brayer. And I've got this little piece hanging over, so I'm just going to cut that off. If you want to save that, you can. And then I have another piece, and you can see that these are odds and ends. So let's do it this way. This is a batik, so I can cut it from either side. And I'll just make it, the first couple, well, you know what? I'll make this one a little different. So what I always aim for is I want to try to stay on one of the lines. Well, this one's a little crooked. I don't need to do 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch. So I've got everything. This one, I'm a little shy at the top. Can you see? Okay. So in the beginning, when you're first doing that, you'll want to make sure you get it up on a line or just over the line. I go on the line, and then when I place my shape, I come just inside the line. And so this one, with all this mess, I'm not going to worry about that right now, but I'm going along a line and along a line here. Okay, so now let's switch over, and I'm going to turn this way, so when we switch back. So we'll switch over to our Cricut design space. And again, if you have the Brother Scan and Cut, you would just put your things on your mat, scan it in, and these fabrics will come up on the screen, so you can move everything exactly without, doesn't matter if you're on a line or not, doesn't matter. So let's go into the Cricut design space. And I did have a circle here, but let me just pick it. So say I need a square from each piece. So I have a 2-inch square. I want another one, so I'm going to come up to the right where the duplicate is. Now I have 2. Now I want to show you this. I'm going to do this in a different color, because I think sometimes some people, myself included, may have these different colors just so in our brain we have 2 different fabrics. We're going to have 2 different squares. So, but we don't need to, but you'll see why in a second. So I'm just going to say I need one of each of these. I'm going to go to make it. And do you see how I have 2 mats? one for the green, one for the blue. But I've got all my fabric on one mat. So I'm going to, at this point, I'll say, oh yeah, I should have made them one color. I'm going to click on the number 2 mat. Up here in the top left circle is 3 dots. I'm going to move the object, and I'm going to move it to the first mat, the green mat. Okay? So it's going to be on top of the other one. Now, you can still see that the number 2 mat is there, but when we go to the next screen, it won't be. It'll go away. But even if it did stay, if there's nothing on it, it won't cut anything. Now, I'm going to move this down over here. I'm just going to move this a little bit. So I'm going to switch back to the mat. And I'm going to look at this is going to be where one of them is. So let me see. So this is about almost 2 3/4 across. So for me, I'm thinking, oh, let me put that square down here and keep this piece as it is because it's a bigger piece, I have less waste. So if I look on the side, which I now have covered, so I'm coming down, I'm at, say I'm gonna come down and bring the square down to the 7. So the bottom of the square is at the 7. So I'm going to take the square and come down and be at the 7. Now you see this red line goes all the way around, and think of that as like the margin. So the Cricut has already made it so you're not going to the very edge of the mat. But I always come in a little bit, and the 7 line is right there. And remember, we've got about 7.5, so I can come down right on the line. And that one's going to be all set. Now I want to take care of this one. So now if we come back, well, this piece here is barely 2 inches. So I'm not going to use that section. So let's go just to this bottom corner. Because when you're first doing these, try to make it easy on yourself and not try to go up in here. Practice a little bit. So I'm on 1 inch in and 1 inch up from the bottom. See? 1 inch in, 1 inch up. So let me switch back. And I'm going to move the mat up. There we go. So I'm 1 inch in and 1 inch up. And then I come just a little bit inside those lines. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit here. So you can see, I'm just, instead of being on the line like the one up on the top left is, I'm just inside of that line. So that I should have a little piece. And I'm going to come in a little more because I can see my fabric is a little crooked. So do you see how I have, let me see if I can come in even more. You see how I've got a little room there? You know, it's like a sliver of fabric. That you'd be wasting, so to speak. And if you were doing this with a ruler and a rotary cutter, you'd have to square up and you'd take a sliver or more than a sliver off anyway. So let me get this back. So now you can see them both. And then I would go continue. Oh, and I don't have a machine set up. So let me turn the maker on and we'll continue on. Okay, so I got the maker set up. Sorry about that. When I was thinking of the video for cleaning the mat, I wasn't thinking about this part of it, but so I wasn't quite set up. So I'm just going to pick cotton. And then I'm going to switch over to the other camera. There we go. So I've got the light is blinking to feed the fabric. And now I call it the little crickets blinking. I have my rotary tool in. Sorry if it's extra loud. and it's done. So let me just move this out of the way a little bit. Here we go. So what I always do is I always make sure that I pick up the part of the fabric or paper, cardstock, whatever I'm doing, that is the leftover, rather than trying to dig and find the piece I want to cut. And I would just trim this off, this little section off. So there's our two pieces. And I would suggest to you, you get these little threads. Don't try to dig them off. If you can peel them off with your finger, that's okay. But I have found if I just leave them, if I'm working on a few things, if I just leave them on, they haven't interfered with anything yet. Okay, my nice clean mat, now I've got strands on it again. So there we are, there's our two pieces. And you can see, we cut it out of that piece. And this one, here's the waist right there. The two little slivers. So, again, I would cut that off. But I might, unless I was doing half square triangles, I might square this up and trim it off. But for now, I'll just leave it until I need, when I go to cut again, if I need to trim that just so my eyeball isn't thrown off, then that's what I'll do. I'll do it then, not now. So our clean mat, or was a clean mat, this part's still clean. It's pretty, but see there's your little buildup. And until your mat sort of looks like mine was at the beginning, you don't need to clean it every single time. I had to get over that myself. So this little bit that's there, I'll just leave that. Maybe I probably will just scrub that off because I'm putting the mat away for a while. But if I'm working over the, excuse me, over the day or the week or whatever, I'm not going to clean it after every time. Like I said, I've put fabric down on top of these little strings and stuff, and I didn't have any issue at all. So I hope this helps you out, and I hope that you learn to use up your little pieces, save them for the next project you have. So thanks for stopping by. See you next time. Bye.